Welcome, fellow seekers of history's gentle mysteries. Before we journey into the sacred groves of ancient Celtic lands, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from tonight. Whether you're settling in for sleep in Dublin, beginning your evening wind-down in Denver, or finding a quiet moment somewhere between, I'm grateful you've joined me here. If these explorations into history's more mystical truths resonate with you, please subscribe so you never miss our peaceful wanderings through the past's forgotten wisdom. Tonight, we'll walk among the oaks where Druids once gathered under moonlight, witness the sacred cutting of the golden bough, and discover how a humble parasitic plant became the most powerful medicine in Celtic tradition. Now, settle back and let your mind drift with me to a time when nature and spirit were one, when healing came from the forest's heart, and when mistletoe held the power of life itself. In the mists of ancient Gaul, around 50 BCE, morning dew clings to the sacred oak grove near what will one day be called Chartres. The first light of dawn reveals something extraordinary. Clusters of mistletoe, that mysterious plant that needs no soil, growing high in the branches, like nature's own constellation. Our story begins with young Brenos, an apprentice druid barely 16 summers old, standing at the edge of the grove for his first glimpse of the ritual harvesting. The mistletoe appears almost luminous in the early light, its white berries catching the sun like pearls. The senior druids have been watching this particular growth for 6 moons, waiting for the perfect moment when the plant's power would be at its peak. They believe mistletoe is neither of earth nor sky, but something between. A bridge between the mortal world and the realm of spirits. This liminal quality, they teach, is what gives it such profound healing properties. The oak tree itself is sacred to the thunder god Taranis, and anything that grows upon it without touching earth must surely carry divine essence. Young Brenos watches as the elder druids examine the morning sky, checking the phase of the moon, the flight patterns of ravens, and the direction of the wind. Everything must align perfectly for the harvest. The mistletoe cannot be touched by base metal, cannot fall to common ground, and must be gathered with prayers that have been passed down through 20 generations of druids. As Brenos observes, he notices how even the forest seems to hold its breath in anticipation. The sun climbs higher as Archdruid Diviciacus emerges from the stone circle, carrying the most sacred tool of their order, a golden sickle wrapped in white linen. Gold, the druids teach, is the metal of the sun, pure and incorruptible, the only substance worthy of harvesting the all-heal plant. Iron, they say, would poison the mistletoe's essence, for iron belongs to war and blood, while gold belongs to healing and light. The sickle itself was forged 7 generations ago, its handle carved from a branch of the first oak ever struck by lightning in living memory. Diviciacus unwraps it slowly, allowing the morning sun to catch its surface, sending golden reflections dancing across the grove. Young Brenos learns that the sickle must never touch the ground, never draw blood, and must be purified with sacred spring water and smoke from burning vervain before each use. The preparation ritual alone takes 3 days, during which the designated harvester must fast and purify themselves through meditation and cold river bathing. The elder druid explains that mistletoe's power comes not just from the plant itself, but from the manner of its gathering. Every gesture, every word spoken, every tool used becomes part of the medicine's potency. The golden sickle represents the sun's rays cutting through winter's darkness, just as mistletoe brings life and healing through the coldest months when all other plants sleep. Diviciacus demonstrates the proper grip, the angle of approach, the sweeping motion that must be completed in a single cut. There can be no soaring, no second attempts. The mistletoe must be severed cleanly, like cutting an umbilical cord between the physical and spiritual worlds. As the 6th hour approaches, the sound of bronze bells echoes through the forest. 2 pure white bulls, their horns wrapped in sacred red cloth, are led into the grove by junior druids. These are no ordinary cattle. They've been raised from birth for this sole purpose, fed only on blessed grain and water from sacred springs, never yoked or put to common labor. The bulls represent the earth's strength and fertility, their white color symbolizing purity, and their sacrifice ensuring the mistletoe's power transfers properly from the divine realm to human use. Renos helps prepare the altar, a flat stone that legend says fell from the sky in the time of his grandfather's grandfather. The bulls are surprisingly calm, as if they understand their role in this ancient dance between humanity and nature. The Druids believe animals chosen for sacred purposes know their destiny and accept it with grace. Around the altar, other Druids arrange offerings: honey from bees that nest in sacred trees, bread made from the first wheat of harvest, mead aged for 7 years in oak casks buried beneath the full moon. Each offering represents a different aspect of life that mistletoe can heal. Honey for poisoned wounds, bread for wasting diseases, mead for melancholy and madness. The bulls are adorned with wreaths of oak leaves and vervain, their white flanks painted with blue woad in spiraling patterns that mirror the movement of stars. As they're led in a circle around the oak tree 3 times, the Druids chant in the old tongue, words that were ancient even when the Romans first encountered the Celts. The very air seems to thicken with power, and Brenos feels the hair on his arms rise as if a thunderstorm approaches, though the sky remains clear. The time has come for the most dangerous part of the ceremony. Diviciacus, despite his 70 winters, must climb the sacred oak himself. No proxy can perform this duty. He removes his sandals, for naked feet must touch the bark, creating a living connection between druid and tree. The oak towers 40 feet high, its trunk so vast that 6 men holding hands could barely embrace it. The mistletoe grows near the crown, where the branches fork like antlers, a place the Druids call the throne of the sky god. Brenos watches anxiously as the elder begins his ascent, using a rope woven from hemp and horsehair, blessed and strengthened with chanted spells. Each handhold is deliberate, each footstep placed with intention. The Druids believe the tree spirits must accept the climber, or they will shake him loose like a dead leaf. Diviciacus pauses frequently, pressing his ear to the bark as if listening to whispered secrets, murmuring responses in the sacred tongue. Birds that normally flee from humans remain perched nearby, watching with what seems like intelligent interest. A raven, messenger of the other world, lands on a branch near the mistletoe and caws 3 times. An auspicious sign that makes the gathered druids, satisfied, nod in satisfaction. As Diviciacus climbs higher, he begins the ascension chant, a hypnotic rhythm that speaks of the world tree that connects the underworld, Middle Earth, and sky realm. His voice, though aged, carries with surprising strength through the grove. The other druids below spread a white bull hide beneath the tree, for if even a single sprig of mistletoe touches the ground, the entire harvest is spoiled and must wait another year. The climb takes nearly an hour, and by the time Diviciacus reaches the mistletoe, the sun stands at its zenith, the moment of maximum power when the plant's healing properties are strongest. High in the oak's embrace, Diviciacus steadies himself against the massive trunk and withdraws the golden sickle from his belt. The mistletoe before him glows with an almost supernatural vitality. Its leaves are deep green that seems to pulse with life, its berries like drops of moonlight made solid. He begins the harvest invocation, calling upon Belenus the healer, Brigantia the exalted one, and the spirit of the mistletoe itself. The words are older than memory, passed down through an unbroken chain of druids, stretching back to the time when the ice retreated and forests reclaimed the land. Below, every eye watches as Divicacus raises the sickle. The blade catches the noon sun and throws golden light across the grove like a blessing. In one fluid motion, perfected through decades of practice, he sweeps the sickle through the mistletoe's stem. The plant falls, tumbling through shafts of sunlight, and the druids below track its descent with the white bull hide, catching it before it can touch the earth. A collective sigh rises from the assembly. The first and most crucial cutting has succeeded. Huckars! But Divicacus's work is far from finished. The oak bears 12 more clusters of mistletoe, each requiring the same precise ritual cutting. With each harvest, he must speak different words of power, addressing different aspects of the plant's healing nature. One for fevers, one for barrenness, one for poison, one for madness, and so on. Young Brenos carefully records each incantation on his wax tablets, though he knows it will be years before he's permitted to speak them aloud. The physical strain on Divicacus is evident. His arms tremble with fatigue, sweat beads on his brow despite the cool air, but his cuts remain precise. This is why druids train their bodies as rigorously as their minds, why they practice climbing trees and wielding tools until the movements become as natural as breathing. As Divicacus begins his careful descent, the gathered mistletoe is laid reverently on the white bull hide, arranged in 13 bundles, one for each moon of the year. The archdruid's feet finally touch the earth again, and immediately the younger druids rush forward to support him, for the ritual has drained much of his strength. Yet his eyes burn bright with accomplishment. This is his 40th harvest, and he knows it may be his last. The mistletoe must now be blessed before the sun moves from its zenith. Divicacus takes his staff, carved from a branch of the first oak he ever climbed as a young initiate, and touches each bundle while speaking the words of consecration. These words transform the simple plant into something more, a bridge between worlds, a key to unlock the body's hidden healing powers. The two white bulls are brought forward, and here young Brenos learns one of the deepest mysteries. The bulls will not be sacrificed in the common way, with blood and violence. Instead, they will be fed a small portion of the mistletoe mixed with sacred herbs, then released into the wild forest. The druids believe that as the bulls wander free, carrying the mistletoe's essence within them, they spread its healing power throughout the land, blessing every place where their hooves touch the earth. This is the true sacrifice, not death, but transformation and dispersal of sacred energy. The bulls seem to understand, accepting the mistletoe eagerly, their large brown eyes reflecting an ancient wisdom. As they're led away to be released, their bells ring one last time through the grove, a sound that seems to seal the ritual's power. The mistletoe itself will be divided, some dried for medicine, some preserved in sacred oil, some burned as incense in healing ceremonies, and a small portion buried beneath the oak to return its gift to the earth. Deep within the grove stands a stone structure older than memory, the preparation chamber, where mistletoe transforms from plant to medicine. Brenos follows the senior druids inside, his eyes adjusting to the dim light filtered through gaps in the stone roof. The walls are lined with shelves holding ceramic vessels, each marked with Ogham script describing its contents and purpose. The air is thick with the scent of herbs, some sweet, some bitter, some sharp enough to make the eyes water. Here the mistletoe will be processed according to methods passed down through 40 generations. The fresh berries are carefully separated from the leaves and stems, for each part has different properties. The berries, poisonous if consumed raw, become powerful medicine when properly prepared, through a complex process of fermentation and distillation that takes one full moon cycle. The leaves are divided into 3 portions, 1/3 to be dried in darkness, 1/3 in moonlight, and 1/3 in sunlight. Each drying method imbues the leaves with different healing qualities. The stems are ground into powder using a mortar and pestle made from the same stone as the altar, the grinding always done in a specific pattern. 13 circles clockwise, then 13 counterclockwise, repeated 9 times. Brennus learns that the number of repetitions isn't arbitrary, but corresponds to the body's energy centers, as understood by the Druids. The preparation room also contains the sacred formulary, a collection of bark scrolls detailing hundreds of recipes using mistletoe. Some are simple, mistletoe tea for headaches. Others are complex beyond imagination, requiring ingredients gathered from specific places at specific times, combined with astronomical precision. One recipe for treating the falling sickness requires mistletoe harvested during a solar eclipse, mixed with water collected from a spring at the moment of the equinox, and administered while speaking words in the language of the spirits. As evening approaches, word of the successful harvest spreads through the surrounding settlements. Already, the first seekers of healing begin arriving at the grove's edge. Among them is Brigantia, a young mother carrying a child of perhaps 3 summers. The boy's skin is pale as winter frost, his breathing labored, his small body racked with a cough that sounds like ravens calling. She has walked 2 days to reach the grove, carrying the child when he became too weak to walk. The village healers tried everything: willow bark for fever, honey and wine for the cough, even the dangerous remedy of breathing smoke from burning coltsfoot. Nothing helped, and they told her only the Druids' mistletoe might save him now. Diviciacus, despite his exhaustion from the harvest, receives them personally. He examines the child with gentle hands, feeling the pulse at various points, examining the whites of his eyes, even smelling his breath. Thoughtful, to Brennus he explains that the child suffers from what they call the wet lung disease, where fluid fills the breathing spaces like water in a leather bag. The treatment requires not just mistletoe, but a careful combination of plants and ritual. They prepare a potion using fresh mistletoe berries that have been crushed and steeped in spring water, with elderflower and ground ivy. But medicine alone isn't enough. The healing must engage body, mind, and spirit. Diviciacus begins to chant, a low rhythmic sound that seems to resonate in the chest. He instructs Brigantia to hold her child close, to breathe with him, to imagine her strength flowing into his small body. The mistletoe potion is administered drop by drop, timed with the chanting, while other druids burn dried mistletoe leaves, filling the chamber with sacred smoke. Through the night they work, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the child's breathing begins to ease. By dawn, colour returns to his cheeks, and for the first time in weeks, he asks for food. In the days following the harvest, Brennus receives his first formal lesson in the doctrine of signatures, the belief that plants reveal their medicinal purposes through their appearance and behaviour. Mistletoe, the teachers explain, demonstrates its power through its very nature. It grows without touching earth, showing it can treat diseases that make people feel disconnected from their bodies. Its white berries resemble drops of male seed, indicating its use in treating barrenness. Its evergreen nature during winter shows it can bring life when all seems dead. The way it draws sustenance from its host tree without killing it teaches about balance, taking only what is needed, giving back through its beauty and the shelter it provides to birds. Master Druid Cathbard leads the lesson, his teaching style combining practical demonstration with mystical insight. He shows how mistletoe's branching pattern mirrors the branching of blood vessels in the body, suggesting its use in treating blood ailments. The sticky nature of its berries represents its ability to draw out poisons and evil spirits that stick to the soul. Even the way birds spread its seeds through their droppings teaches about transformation. What seems like waste becomes new life, just as illness can become the seed of greater wisdom. Brennus learns to observe with new eyes, seeing the interconnected web of meaning in every aspect of the plant. the lesson extends beyond mistletoe to the entire forest pharmacopoeia. Oak galls, hard and bitter, treat hardening diseases. Willow, which loves water, treats diseases of excessive fluid. Foxglove, with its purple flowers like bruised flesh, heals the failing heart. But mistletoe remains supreme among plant teachers, for it exists between all worlds, neither tree nor ground plant, neither fully plant nor fully animal in its dependence on birds for propagation, neither of summer nor winter, but thriving in both. The full moon rises over the grove, and with it comes another dimension of mistletoe's power. The Druids teach that the moon governs the movement of fluids in all things, the tides of the sea, the sap in trees, the blood in bodies, and the potency of medicines. Mistletoe, being neither fully of earth nor sky, is particularly sensitive to lunar influences. On this night, Brenos participates in his first moon-charging ritual. Fresh mistletoe is laid out on white linen cloths in a clearing where the full moon's light can touch it directly. The Druids form a circle around the medicine, each holding a bronze mirror polished to perfection. They angle their mirrors to catch moonlight and reflect it onto the mistletoe from multiple directions, bathing the plant in concentrated lunar energy. This process, they believe, awakens the mistletoe's ability to treat ailments of the mind and spirit, melancholy, night terrors, and the mysterious affliction where people lose their memories and wander lost in their own homes. As they work, an old woman named Epona arrives, supporting her husband who stares with vacant eyes at nothing. He was once a great warrior, she explains, but 3 winters ago, he began forgetting first names, then faces, and now he doesn't even recognize her. The healers tried everything, but each day he slips further into the mist. Diviciacus prepares a special tincture using the moon-charged mistletoe, mixing it with herbs that sharpen the mind, rosemary for remembrance, sage for wisdom, ginkgo leaves traded from distant eastern lands. But the treatment involves more than drinking medicine. Under the full moon, they lead the old warrior through a ceremony of remembering, using objects from his past, his sword, his marriage talk, a piece of cloth from his first child's swaddling. With each object, they speak his history, while the mistletoe medicine works to clear the fog from his mind's pathways. Dawn breaks with the arrival of unusual visitors, 3 warriors from the tribe of the Arverni, their bodies bearing fresh wounds from recent battle. But they haven't come for healing of the flesh. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Couturix, speaks of a different kind of wound, the soul sickness that comes after taking life in battle. His youngest warrior, barely past his 16th year, killed for the first time in the recent conflict. Since then, he neither sleeps nor eats, starting at shadows, reliving the moment when his spear found its mark. The Druids nod knowingly. They call this the warrior's shadow, and mistletoe holds the key to its healing. But this treatment requires a different preparation, one known only to the war Druids, who serve both as healers and battle advisors. They prepare what they call the peace draught, mistletoe berries fermented with honey and specific mushrooms that grow only where blood has been spilled. The mixture must age for exactly 9 days, the time it takes for a soul to fully separate from a violently killed body. During these 9 days, the afflicted warrior undergoes a parallel treatment. Each dawn, he drinks water in which mistletoe leaves have soaked overnight, while recounting his experience to a druid who listens without judgment. Each dusk, he bathes in water strewn with mistletoe and oak leaves, symbolically washing away the blood guilt. The treatment culminates in a ceremony where the warrior drinks the peace draught while standing beneath the same oak from which the mistletoe was harvested. The belief is that the oak's strength and the mistletoe's liminal nature combine to transform the killing guilt into warrior wisdom. Brenos watches as the young warrior's eyes gradually lose their haunted quality, as sleep returns, as he begins to speak of things beyond the battlefield. The older warriors share their own experiences with the warrior's shadow, creating a circle of understanding that the mistletoe medicine makes possible. A procession arrives at the grove. Queen Cartimandua of the Brigantes, accompanied by her retinue. Despite her power and wealth, sad sorrow shadows her face. 7 years married, she remains childless, and the tribal elders whisper of replacing her with a more fertile queen. She has tried everything. Prayers at sacred springs, offerings to Brigantia, remedies from healers across the land. The mistletoe is her last hope. The Druids understand that barrenness has many causes, sometimes of the body, sometimes of the spirit, often of both, intertwined like mistletoe around oak. They begin with divination, casting ogham sticks carved from mistletoe wood, reading the patterns that form. The signs suggest a blockage, not in her womb, but in her life force itself, caused by a curse placed by a rival in her youth. The treatment is complex, requiring multiple approaches. First, she must drink daily a tea made from mistletoe leaves, gathered from an oak that itself bears fertile acorns. Second, she wears a girdle woven from mistletoe vines, replaced each new moon. Third, and most challenging, she must reconcile with the one who cursed her. For hatred and fertility cannot coexist, the Druids teach. The queen balks at this last requirement, but Diviciacus is firm. Mistletoe heals by bringing balance, by connecting what is separated. A curse is merely misdirected life force that must be redirected to its proper channel. Through the moon's cycle, Cartimandua follows the treatment. The mistletoe tea tastes of earth and sky combined. The girdle reminds her constantly of her purpose. Finally, she sends messengers to her rival, her younger sister, who she banished years ago over a dispute about succession. The reconciliation is difficult, tears are shed, but as the sisters embrace, something shifts. Within 3 moons, the queen's belly begins to swell with new life. Urgent shouts break the grove's usual peace. A merchant named Bran is carried in on a litter, his body convulsing, foam at his lips. His companions speak quickly. He was dining with Roman traders when he suddenly collapsed. Poison is suspected, perhaps in the wine, meant to eliminate a too successful Celtic competitor. The Druids spring into action, for mistletoe is renowned as the universal antidote called all heal, precisely for such moments. But using it as an antidote requires precise knowledge. Too little, and the poison continues its work. Too much, and the mistletoe itself becomes toxic. Cathbad takes charge, examining the symptoms: dilated pupils, rapid heartbeat, cold sweats. He identifies the poison as derived from hemlock, favored by Roman assassins for its swift action. The antidote must be equally swift. They prepare an emergency draft: fresh mistletoe berries crushed with charcoal from burnt oak, mixed with strong wine to speed absorption. But first, they must empty his stomach. Using a hollow reed, they pour salt water mixed with ground mistletoe root into his throat, causing violent purging. As Bran retches, expelling the poisoned wine, they chant the counter-poison invocation, calling upon mistletoe's power to bind and neutralize toxins. The treatment is brutal but necessary. Every few minutes, they administer small sips of the mistletoe antidote, watching carefully for signs of improvement or deterioration. Brenos is tasked with monitoring Bran's pulse, calling out changes in rhythm. Slowly, agonizingly, the convulsions ease. The foam stops forming. Color returns to Bran's blue-tinged lips. By midnight, he's conscious enough to speak, describing the strange taste in the wine that preceded his collapse. The Druids keep him under observation for 3 days, administering decreasing doses of mistletoe to ensure all traces of poison are neutralized. They also prepare protective amulets of dried mistletoe for him to wear, believing it will warn him of future poisoning attempts by growing warm against his skin.
On the 9th day after harvest, the creation of the sacred oil begins.
This is one of the most closely guarded secrets of the Druids, a process known only to the highest initiates. Brenos is honored to be allowed to observe, though he must take an oath of silence, promising never to reveal the complete process to any but a true Druid. The oil requires not just mistletoe, but 27 other ingredients, each gathered at specific times according to celestial movements. The base is pressed from olives traded from Mediterranean lands, considered superior to local nut oils for holding medicinal essences. The mistletoe leaves are added at the dark of the moon, the berries at the full. Between these additions, other plants join the mixture: comfrey for bone healing, calendula for skin renewal, St. John's wort for nerve pain. But the physical ingredients are only part of the process. Each day, the oil must be exposed to different elemental forces, one day buried in earth, another suspended in running water, a third hung in smoke from sacred fires, a fourth lifted high on poles to catch wind and sun. During each exposure, specific chants are sung, their vibrations believed to organize the oil's molecular structure into healing patterns. The most mysterious ingredient is what the Druids call captured lightning, water collected from hollows in trees struck by lightning during thunderstorms. This, they say, adds the spark of life force that transforms the oil from mere medicine to miraculous healing agent. The final step requires the oil to be passed through a hollow mistletoe root, a rare find, as mistletoe rarely develops hollow roots. This passage, they believe, imbues the oil with mistletoe's essential nature as a bridge between worlds. The finished oil glows with a golden-green luminescence, and even unstoppered, its scent fills a room with feelings of peace and vitality. A single drop on the tongue can calm anxiety. Rubbed on joints, it eases the bone ache. Applied to wounds, it prevents festering. As the Wheel of Seasons turns towards Samhain, the Druids prepare for one of mistletoe's most mysterious applications: the inducement of prophetic dreams. A delegation from the Iceni tribe has arrived, led by their young princess, Boudica, seeking visions of her tribe's future. The Romans grow ever bolder in their demands, and she must know whether to counsel peace or resistance. The dream-bringing requires a specific preparation of mistletoe, one that walks the dangerous edge between vision and poison. The berries are fermented with honey and mixed with other vision-inducing plants: mugwort, wormwood, and the dangerous but powerful mushrooms that grow in fairy rings. The dose must be exact. Too little brings only confused dreams. Too much can trap the dreamer in the other world permanently. Boudica is prepared through 3 days of fasting and purification. On the third night, under the waning moon, she drinks the mistletoe draught while lying on a bed of oak leaves in the sacred grove. 7 druids surround her, each holding a branch of mistletoe, creating a protective circle that will anchor her spirit to this world while it journeys through the realm of prophecy. As the draught takes effect, Boudica's eyes roll back, showing only white. Her body remains still as stone, but Brenos, watching closely, sees rapid movement beneath her eyelids, the sign of true vision dreaming. The Druids maintain their vigil through the night, occasionally waving mistletoe smoke over her to guide her journey. Just before dawn, she gasps and sits upright, her eyes wild with what she's seen. She speaks of eagles fighting dragons, of forests burning, of a great queen leading warriors in a final battle. The visions are troubling, speaking of glory and tragedy intertwined. The Druids help her interpret the symbols, though some meanings will only become clear with time's passage. They give her a sprig of the vision mistletoe to keep, telling her it will help her remember the dreams when crucial decisions must be made. The first snows of winter transform the grove into a crystal palace. The oaks stand bare except for the mistletoe, which remains vibrantly green against the white landscape. This is when mistletoe's power reaches its peak, the Druids teach. When all other life sleeps, the all-heal remains awake, gathering strength from both earth and sky. Old Diviciacus, feeling his years more keenly in the cold, passes his knowledge to Brenos with increasing urgency. Winter mistletoe, he explains, carries special properties. Its berries, now fully ripened to translucent white, contain the concentrated essence of the year's solar energy. Medicine made from winter mistletoe can revive those who hover between life and death, warm those whose inner fire dims, and bring hope to those lost in despair's darkness. A perfect example arrives with the morning. A child pulled from an icy river, blue-lipped and barely breathing. The regular revival methods have failed, and the parents weep, believing her spirit has already departed. But Diviciacus sees a faint flutter at her throat, the barest thread of life. They prepare the winter revival, a complex treatment using mistletoe gathered exactly at winter solstice. The berries are crushed and mixed with warmed mead and drops of the sacred oil. But applying it requires precision. Too much heat and it loses potency. Too little and it won't penetrate the cold-locked body. They warm stones in the fire, wrap them in wool soaked with mistletoe oil, and place them at specific points on the child's body, the heart, the belly, the soles of the feet. Meanwhile, they burn dried mistletoe leaves, directing the smoke into her nostrils with hollow reeds. The other Druids begin the calling back chant, a hypnotic rhythm that supposedly guides lost spirits back to their bodies. Hours pass. The parents pray. Then, like ice cracking on a spring river, the child gasps, coughs, and opens her eyes. Colour floods back into her cheeks like sunrise over snow. As Imbolc approaches and the first hints of spring touch the land, the grove prepares for the annual renewal ceremony. Mistletoe harvested now, when sap begins to rise, but before new leaves appear, possesses unique regenerative properties. People come from across the tribal lands, seeking healing for chronic ailments that winter has worsened, joint stiffness, breathing difficulties, the deep fatigue that comes from months of cold and darkness. Brenos, now more confident in his skills, helps prepare the spring tonic. This requires fresh mistletoe leaves picked at dawn, combined with early nettles, cleansing cleavers, and the first dandelion greens. The mixture is steeped in water, drawn from springs at the moment of sunrise, when the earth's energy shifts from sleeping to waking. Among the seekers is a bard named Amergin, whose voice, his livelihood and sacred gift, has been stolen by a winter illness. He speaks only in painful whispers and fears the gods have withdrawn their favor. The Druids recognize this as more than physical ailment. When a bard loses voice, it often signals spiritual blockage. They prepare a special treatment, combining mistletoe with herbs sacred to Brigid, goddess of poetry and healing. But the cure requires Amergin's participation. He must climb the oak himself, not to harvest, but to commune. At the tree's heart, where the largest mistletoe cluster grows, he must whisper his stories, his songs, his fears. The mistletoe, they say, will carry his words to the other world and bring back his voice transformed. As Emerging climbs, Brenos notices something remarkable. The mistletoe seems to pulse with light each time the bard whispers to it. When he descends, his voice remains gone, but his eyes shine with renewed purpose. That night, after drinking the mistletoe tonic, he sleeps. When dawn comes, he awakens singing, not his old voice, but something richer, deeper, touched by otherworldly resonance. At summer solstice, when the sun reaches its peak power, the Druids perform the great gathering, not of mistletoe, but of the healers who use it. Representatives from 20 tribes converge on the grove, each bringing their local variations of mistletoe medicine and the stories of their cures. This exchange of knowledge ensures that wisdom isn't lost if disaster befalls any single grove. Brenos meets Druids he's only heard of in legend, Tlachtga, the sorceress from the eastern mountains who discovered how to use mistletoe to ease childbirth. Fintan the Ancient, from the western shores, who claims to have learned mistletoe's secrets from the Tuatha De Danann themselves. Scatak, the warrior healer from the northern islands who developed mistletoe treatments for battle wounds. Each day brings new revelations. Tlachtga demonstrates how mistletoe gathered from apple trees, rather than oak, has gentler properties, perfect for treating children and the elderly. Fintan shares his technique of combining mistletoe with seaweed, creating a poultice that draws out infection while promoting healing. Scatak shows how mistletoe oil, mixed with pine resin, creates a battlefield medicine that stops bleeding while preventing wound rot. But the most intriguing knowledge comes from a young druidess named Nimue, who speaks of mistletoe's effect on the mind's eye, the third sight that allows some to see beyond the veil. She's developed a method of preparing mistletoe that enhances natural psychic abilities without the dangers of the Vision Quest preparations. Her technique involves gathering mistletoe at the moment of solar eclipse, when sun and moon unite, imbuing the plant with balanced masculine and feminine energies. The debates and demonstrations continue deep into the white nights of summer. Some techniques are adopted immediately, others require more testing, but all agree that mistletoe's mysteries are far from fully explored. Each generation discovers new uses, new preparations, new understanding of this plant that bridges worlds. The gathering ends with a ceremony, where each druid places a sprig of their local mistletoe on the altar, creating a bouquet representing the unity of their scattered wisdom. The harvest moon rises blood red over the grove, and with it comes disturbing news. Several villages report a strange sickness, people falling into sleep from which they cannot wake, their bodies healthy but their spirits seemingly departed. The condition spreads not by contact, but by proximity to certain ancient stones. The eldest druids recognize this as the sleep of stones, a curse last seen 3 generations ago. The cure requires mistletoe, but not just any mistletoe. It must come from an oak growing at a crossroads, harvested at the exact moment when the harvest moon touches the horizon. Brenos joins the expedition to find such a tree. They travel through the night, using divination rods made from mistletoe wood to guide them. At a crossing of 3 ancient roads, they find their quarry. A massive oak bearing a single cluster of mistletoe at its crown. But as they prepare to harvest, they discover they're not alone. A figure emerges from shadows, a woman in strange robes speaking Celtic. She claims to be a healer from Rome, sent to study the Druids' medicine. She offers gold for mistletoe knowledge, particularly the secret of the sleep of stones cure. The Druids are torn. Gold could buy grain for the coming winter, but their secrets are sacred. Diviciacus makes a bold decision. He'll teach her, but only if she shares Roman medical knowledge in return. Through the night, as Brenos climbs for the crucial mistletoe, an exchange occurs below. The Roman woman Julia demonstrates surgical techniques unknown to the Druids, while Diviciacus explains the spiritual component of healing that Roman medicine lacks. The collaboration proves fruitful. Combining Roman precision with Druidic wisdom creates a more powerful cure. The mistletoe is prepared using both traditions, creating a remedy that not only wakes the sleepers, but leaves them with enhanced vitality. This meeting marks a turning point, suggesting that wisdom transcends tribal boundaries, just as mistletoe transcends the boundary between earth and sky. As autumn deepens, the grove witnesses an unusual phenomenon. Forest animals begin arriving, some limping, others with visible wounds or illness, gathering near the preparation chamber where mistletoe medicine is made. The Druids have long known that animals understand healing plants instinctively, but this organized pilgrimage is unprecedented. Among them is a magnificent stag with a festering wound from a Roman hunter's arrow. The beast stands proud despite his pain. his eyes holding an intelligence that seems almost human. Old Diviciacus declares this a sign. The forest itself seeks healing, not just from physical wounds, but from the spiritual damage caused by increasing Roman incursions. They prepare what they call the wild healing, a ceremony performed only when nature itself requests aid. Mistletoe is combined with herbs favored by each animal species. Willow for deer, mint for foxes, elder for birds. The preparation is placed in hollow logs and stone basins throughout the grove, allowing animals to self-medicate according to their needs. Brenos is assigned to observe and record which animals take which preparations, adding to the Druids' understanding of natural healing wisdom. He watches in fascination as a she-wolf with mange rolls in mistletoe-infused mud. A family of badgers with respiratory infections breathe deeply of burning mistletoe smoke, and small birds with broken wings nestle in nests lined with fresh mistletoe leaves. The stag approaches the altar itself, where Diviciacus waits with the sacred oil. In a moment of profound connection, the druid applies the oil to the wound while the stag stands perfectly still, as if understanding the sacred nature of the healing. Over the following days, the animals return repeatedly, their conditions gradually improving. The stag's wound closes cleanly, leaving only a silver scar. Before departing, he approaches Brenos, touching his antlers gently to the young druid's chest. A blessing, the elders say, from the forest itself. This event reinforces the druids' belief that mistletoe serves not just humanity, but all life, bridging the gap between human and natural worlds. The political climate grows tense as Roman influence expands northward. A delegation arrives at the grove, not seekers of healing, but Roman officials demanding the druids cease their practices, claiming their medicine undermines Roman authority by keeping Celtic warriors strong. Leading them is Marcus Aurelius, a pragmatic administrator who privately doubts his orders but must enforce them. Diviciacus receives them with careful diplomacy. Rather than confrontation, he offers a demonstration. Among the Romans is a soldier suffering from an old wound that refuses to heal despite Roman medical treatment. The soldier's constant pain makes him irritable, affecting his duties. Diviciacus proposes a bargain. If mistletoe medicine heals what Roman methods cannot, perhaps cooperation would serve better than suppression. Marcus agrees, thoughtful, curious despite himself. The treatment begins with examination using methods that intrigue the Romans. Pulse taking at multiple points, observation of the tongue and eyes, palpation that seems to map invisible energy lines. The Druids prepare a complex remedy, combining mistletoe oil with frankincense the Romans themselves brought from distant lands. As they work, Diviciacus explains their philosophy, that healing must address not just the body, but the spirit, not just the individual, but their place in the cosmic order. The soldier, initially skeptical, gradually relaxes as the treatment progresses. The mistletoe oil, warmed and applied with specific massage techniques, penetrates deep into the scarred tissue. Within hours, he reports decreased pain for the first time in years. Marcus, trained in Stoic philosophy, finds unexpected parallels between Druidic wisdom and Greek medical thought. He begins to see the Druids not as barbaric shamans, but as sophisticated healers whose knowledge could benefit Rome. The negotiation shifts from suppression to potential collaboration. Marcus proposes a compromise. The Druids can continue their practice if they share certain knowledge with Roman physicians. It's a dangerous precedent, but Diviciacus sees opportunity. If Romans learn the spiritual dimension of healing, perhaps they'll understand that conquering lands means nothing if you lose your soul. Beltane arrives with unusual significance this year. The High King's daughter, Etane, will undergo the sacred marriage ceremony, not to a mortal man, but symbolically to the land itself, becoming a priestess healer. Mistletoe plays a crucial role in this ancient rite, representing the union between earth and sky that the ceremony embodies. Etain has prepared for years, learning herbcraft, memorizing healing songs, studying the movement of stars. But the final initiation requires her to commune directly with the spirit of mistletoe through a dangerous ordeal. She must spend 3 nights alone in the grove, consuming carefully measured amounts of mistletoe preparation that will either grant her healing sight or drive her mad. Brenos helps prepare the initiation draft, his hands trembling with the weight of responsibility. Too strong and Etain could be lost to visions forever. Too weak and the transformation won't occur. The formula has been passed down unchanged for 20 generations, but each initiate responds differently. On the first night, Etain drinks the preparation and enters the grove wearing only a white robe, carrying nothing but a bronze sickle. The Druids maintain a distant vigil, ready to intervene if true danger arises, but forbidden from interfering with the spiritual journey. Through the night, they hear her singing, sometimes joyful, sometimes mournful, sometimes in languages none recognize. The second night brings silence so complete that several younger Druids want to check on her, but Divikiarchus forbids it. The marriage to the land cannot be witnessed, only experienced. On the third dawn, Etain emerges transformed. Her eyes hold depths that weren't there before, and when she speaks, her voice carries an otherworldly resonance. She describes visions of the mistletoe's true nature, not just a plant, but a living bridge between realms, with root threads extending into other dimensions. She now sees the life force flowing through all things, can diagnose illness by observing disruptions in this flow. The sacred marriage is complete. She has become a vessel for mistletoe's healing power. Disaster strikes the neighboring Atrebates tribe, a plague that kills within days, spreading faster than fire through dry grass. Their healers have tried everything, but people die faster than they can be treated. Desperate messengers arrive at the grove, begging for the Druids' help, specifically their mistletoe medicine. Divikiarchus organizes an emergency response, knowing that standard mistletoe preparations won't suffice against plague. They need the emergency sovereign remedy, a preparation so powerful it's only made once a generation. It requires mistletoe from 7 different sacred oaks, each located at sites of ancient power, stone circles, holy wells, battlefield memorials. Brenos joins the gathering expedition, racing against time as the plague spreads. At each site they must perform abbreviated ceremonies, apologizing to the spirits for their haste, but explaining the urgent need. The mistletoe gathered this way carries concentrated power from multiple sources. Back at the grove, the preparation begins. The 7 mistletoes are combined with theriac, the ancient antidote containing over 60 ingredients, and fermented in vessels buried beneath the full moon. But treating plague requires more than medicine. It demands understanding the disease's spiritual dimension. The Druids determined through divination that the plague arose from desecration of an ancient burial ground during Roman road construction. The angry dead spread sickness as their only means of protest. Treatment must therefore address both physical symptoms and spiritual violation. They prepare 2 approaches: the mistletoe's sovereign remedy for the sick, and a separate ceremony to appease the disturbed spirits. The medicine is distributed with specific instructions. It must be taken while facing the direction of the violated graves, with prayers for the dead spoken between each dose. The dual approach works. The plague spread slows, then stops. The sick begin recovering, though many bear lasting effects. The incident teaches a crucial lesson. Healing sometimes requires addressing not just individual illness, but collective spiritual wounds. The Romans, impressed by the plague's cessation, begin showing more respect for Celtic sacred sites, though whether from wisdom or superstition remains unclear. A remarkable child arrives at the grove. Anya, only 7 summers old, who claims mistletoe speaks to her in dreams. Her parents, simple farmers, are frightened by her abilities. She knows where mistletoe grows, without being told, can predict who will fall ill, and sometimes her touch alone eases pain. The Druids test her carefully, for false prophets and the genuinely gifted can appear similar in youth. They place her in a room with various plants, including several mistletoe specimens. Without hesitation, she identifies not just the mistletoe, but describes the tree each came from, the time of harvesting, even the purpose for which each was gathered, surprised. Diviciacus has never seen such natural ability. He declares her one of the mistletoe-touched, those rare individuals born with an innate connection to the plant's consciousness. Such people appear perhaps once in a generation, becoming either the greatest healers or, if untrained, mad from the constant whisper of plant spirits. Training Anya requires special methods. She cannot follow the standard apprenticeship, as her abilities already exceed those of many senior druids in specific areas. Instead, they must teach her control, helping her filter and understand the information she receives. Brenos becomes her primary teacher, being young enough to remember his own struggles with druidic training. Together, they explore Anya's unique gifts. She can sense illness before symptoms appear, feeling it as discordant music in the body's natural harmony. Mistletoe, she explains, thoughtful, shows her how to retune the body's song. Under careful guidance, she develops techniques unknown to traditional druidic medicine. She discovers that mistletoe placed under pillows influences dreams in precise ways, that water in which mistletoe has soaked under starlight carries different properties than moon-soaked preparations. Most remarkably, she can combine mistletoe with other plants intuitively, creating remedies for conditions the druids have never successfully treated. Her presence reinvigorates the grove's learning, reminding even the eldest that mistletoe's mysteries remain largely undiscovered. The winter solstice brings an unexpected visitor. Cunobeline, the powerful king of the Catavalauni, arrives secretly, accompanied only by his most trusted warriors. He suffers from the Winter King's curse, a progressive weakness that strikes rulers who have shed too much blood, even in just wars. His strength fades with each shortened day, and healers fear he won't survive until spring. The condition is known but rare, affecting only those who carry the burden of necessary violence. Standard mistletoe remedies have failed, for this illness exists as much in the soul as the body. Diviciacus explains that Cunobeline must undergo the sovereignty restoration, a complex ritual that can only be performed at winter solstice, when the sun dies and is reborn. The ceremony requires mistletoe from an oak planted at a king's coronation. Fortunately, such a tree grows in the grove, planted when Cunobeline's grandfather took the throne. The mistletoe from this oak carries the accumulated power of righteous kingship, the positive aspect of sovereignty that can counterbalance the darkness of royal burden. But the king must be willing to symbolically die and be reborn. Cunobeline is laid in a grave-like pit lined with oak leaves and mistletoe as the sun sets on the shortest day. The druids cover him with a thin layer of earth mixed with mistletoe berries, leaving only his face exposed. Through the longest night, they maintain vigil, chanting the songs of kingship, not of power and conquest, but of protection, justice, and sacrifice for the people's good. At dawn, as the sun returns, Cunobeline rises from the symbolic grave covered in earth and mistletoe. He drinks a preparation made from the sovereignty oak's mistletoe mixed with mead from his coronation feast, kept these many years for such purpose. The transformation is gradual but undeniable. Colour returns to his cheeks, strength to his limbs, but more importantly, the crushing weight of his crown seems lighter. He emerges not just healed, but renewed in his understanding of kingship as service rather than domination. As Diviciacus feels his final winter approaching, he selects Brenos for a sacred duty, becoming a memory keeper, one who holds the complete oral tradition of mistletoe medicine. This knowledge cannot be written, for words on bark or stone lack the living energy of spoken wisdom, passed from mouth to ear, breath to breath. The process takes a full moon cycle. Each night, Diviciacus recites different aspects of the knowledge. The 17 primary preparations, the 93 combination formulas, the proper words for each healing, the seasonal variations, the emergency protocols. Brenos must repeat everything perfectly, for even small errors can transform healing into harm. But memorization is only the beginning. The memory keeper must understand the why behind each practice. Why must mistletoe for heart ailments be gathered at dawn? Because the heart, like the sun, begins its daily journey with first light. Why is golden sickle essential? Because gold resonates at the same frequency as healthy human tissue, imprinting this harmony on the cut plant. Through the teaching, Divisiacus shares stories of his own mentor and his mentor's mentor, creating an unbroken chain stretching back to the first druid who discovered mistletoe growing on the world tree itself. Each generation adds their discoveries while preserving the ancient core, like rings growing on a tree, while the heartwood remains unchanged. The responsibility weighs heavily on Brenos. He dreams of forgetting crucial formulas, of mixing preparations incorrectly, of the chain of knowledge breaking with him. But Divisiacus, reassures him. The knowledge wants to survive, will help him remember, will even correct his errors if he listens carefully. On the final night, Divisiacus performs the transmission ceremony, using mistletoe smoke to induce a light trance. He and Brenos share consciousness briefly, allowing the elder to verify the knowledge has transferred completely. In that moment, Brenos experiences the accumulated wisdom of 40 generations, understanding flooding through him like sunlight through leaves. He emerges changed, carrying within him not just information, but the living tradition itself.
Marcus Aurelius returns, but not as a conqueror. He comes as a scholar, having left military service to study healing arts. His experiences with Druidic medicine changed his perspective on what Romans dismissively call barbarian superstition. He brings gifts, medical texts from Alexandria, surgical instruments from Damascus, and most importantly, an open mind. He proposes an exchange. He'll document Druidic practices using Roman writing systems, creating permanent records, while the Druids teach him the spiritual dimensions of healing that Roman medicine lacks. Many Druids oppose this, believing written knowledge loses power, becomes fixed and dead. But Brenos sees opportunity. Climate changes and Roman expansion threaten the oral tradition. Perhaps some knowledge preserved in writing surpasses no knowledge at all. They begin carefully, recording only what won't be dangerous if misused. Marcus learns that mistletoe's power isn't just chemical, but depends on harvesting times, preparation rituals, and the healer's intention. He struggles with concepts foreign to Roman materialism, that plants have consciousness, that illness has meaning beyond physical symptoms, that healing requires addressing spiritual imbalances. In exchange, Marcus shares Roman discoveries about anatomy, learned from battlefield surgery and Egyptian mummification practices. The Druids are fascinated by detailed knowledge of organ systems, blood circulation, and nerve pathways. Combining this with their energy-based understanding creates new treatment possibilities. Together, they develop hybrid techniques. Mistletoe preparations enhanced with Roman purification methods, surgical procedures followed by Druidic energy healing, diagnostic techniques combining careful physical examination with intuitive perception. The collaboration produces a manuscript, not a complete record of Druidic knowledge, which remains oral, but a bridge between two healing traditions. Marcus calls it De Medicina Celtica, written in Latin, but preserving Celtic terms for concepts lacking Roman equivalents. Young Ina contributes too, her intuitive understanding helping Marcus grasp concepts that logic alone cannot reach. She teaches him to feel the life force mistletoe manipulates, to sense the subtle energy anatomy the Druids map. The manuscript becomes a treasure, hidden when later Romans attempt to suppress Druidic practices, preserved for future generations, who might reunite the divided streams of healing wisdom. Word arrives that Roman legions approach intent on destroying the sacred grove as part of suppressing Druidic influence. The grove has stood for 1,000 years, its trees holding memories of countless healings. The mistletoe growing here carries generations of accumulated power. It cannot be abandoned.
The Druids prepare not for violent defense, but for spiritual resistance. They begin the grove shielding, an ancient protection using mistletoe's liminal nature to shift the grove partially into the otherworld, making it difficult for those with hostile intent to find or enter. Every person who has ever been healed here is called to contribute. They bring offerings, a lock of hair, a drop of blood, a cherished possession, each carrying gratitude's energy. These are woven with mistletoe into protective talismans hung throughout the grove. Brenos leads the younger druids in preparing the confusion mist, a smoke from burning specific mistletoe preparations that causes disorientation in those who mean harm, while leaving peaceful visitors unaffected. The recipes are adjusted for maximum potency, requiring mistletoe from trees struck by lightning, mixed with herbs that affect perception. When the Romans arrive, led by a general known for brutality, they find the forest strange. Paths that should lead to the grove circle back. Mist rises from nowhere, making soldiers see threats in shadows, friends as enemies. The general himself, breathing the mistletoe smoke, experiences visions of all those his actions have harmed, their faces accusing him from every tree. But one soldier, young and reluctant, having no real hatred for druids, finds himself walking easily through the defences. He enters the grove where Diviciacus waits, offering healing for a wound the soldier didn't know he carried. The spiritual injury of participating in unjust violence. This unexpected mercy breaks something in the soldier. He returns to his legion claiming the grove is cursed, unsuitable for Roman purposes. The general, still shaken by his visions, agrees to bypass it. The grove remains protected, its mistletoe continuing to bridge worlds and heal both body and spirit.
As old Diviciacus weakens, knowing his time approaches, he orchestrates one final teaching, the generational bridge ceremony. This ritual, performed only when a great druid prepares to cross over, ensures wisdom transfers not just to immediate successors, but resonates forward through time. Young Aine, now 10 summers old and showing unprecedented abilities, is chosen to be the bridge child, the one who will carry the deepest mysteries into the far future. The ceremony requires mistletoe from the oldest oak in the grove, a tree that has witnessed 50 generations of druids. This ancient mistletoe contains what they call accumulated wisdom, the energetic imprint of every healing performed in its presence. Diviciacus, Brenos, and Aine form a trinity, past, present, and future. They sit in triangle formation beneath the ancient oak as the full moon rises. Each drinks a preparation of the ancient mistletoe, mixed with water from the sacred spring that feeds the oak's roots. As the medicine takes effect, time seems to fold. Diviciacus shares visions of the past, the first druids discovering mistletoe's power, ancient ceremonies lost to memory, techniques forgotten by all but the trees themselves. Brenos experiences the present moment with supernatural clarity, understanding how every current practice connects to both history and destiny. But Aine sees forward, glimpses of futures where mistletoe medicine evolves, combines with knowledge yet undiscovered, heals ailments that don't yet exist. She sees the grove, sometimes empty, sometimes filled with seekers, the traditions seemingly broken, then mysteriously restored. She understands that knowledge, like mistletoe itself, doesn't truly need Earth to survive. It can live suspended between worlds, waiting for the right conditions to grow again. The ceremony concludes at dawn, with Diviciacus placing his hands on both successors' heads, speaking words in the first language, the tongue spoken before the world divided into tribes. With his blessing, the generational bridge is complete. The wisdom will survive, even if it must hide, like mistletoe seeds in bird bellies, waiting for the right tree, the right time, to sprout again.
The autumn equinox arrives with unusual stillness. Diviciacus, now barely able to walk, requests to be carried to the oak from which he harvested his first mistletoe 60 years ago. He knows, as all druids know, when their final sunset approaches. The entire grove gathers, not in mourning, but in celebration of a life dedicated to healing. Diviciacus has prepared his own transition medicine, mistletoe gathered at every major ceremony of his life, combined into what the Druids call the passage draught. This preparation doesn't prevent death, but ensures consciousness remains clear during the transition, allowing the dying to share final wisdom and pass peacefully into the other world. As the sun descends toward the horizon, Diviciacus drinks the preparation and begins speaking. His voice, weak in recent days, gains unexpected strength. Reminiscing. He tells of healings that seemed impossible, of mistakes that taught crucial lessons, of the time he nearly died testing a new mistletoe preparation, and what he learned in that near-death experience. Thoughtful. He speaks of mistletoe's ultimate secret, that it doesn't truly heal but rather reminds the body of its own wholeness, awakens the healing power that exists within all life. The plant serves as a bridge, not just between earth and sky, but between forgetting and remembering, illness and the memory of health. As twilight deepens, Diviciacus calls Brenos forward. The ceremonial golden sickle passes from trembling aged hands to steady younger ones. With it comes the responsibility of chief healer, keeper of the grove, guardian of mistletoe's mysteries. Then he calls Aina, placing around her neck an amulet of mistletoe wood carved by the first druid of their line. To her, he entrusts the future evolution of their tradition. Finally, as the last sunlight fades, Diviciacus speaks his final words. Peaceful, weak, but clear. The oak endures, the mistletoe persists, the healing continues. His eyes close peacefully, a slight smile on his lips. As his spirit departs, witnesses swear they see a golden light rise from his body, spiraling up the oak to rest among the mistletoe clusters, adding his wisdom to the accumulated knowledge of generations. Brenos stands before the grove as its new guardian, the weight of responsibility heavy as an oak's crown. His first test comes immediately. A delegation from the Nervi tribe arrives with their chieftain's son, struck by a mysterious ailment that causes his body to burn with fever, while his extremities remain ice-cold. No healer has seen its like before. Without Diviciacus to guide him, Brenos must trust his training and intuition. He examines the youth, finding symptoms that don't match any known disease. The fever seems to move through the body in waves, like something alive seeking escape. Consultation of the sacred texts provides no answers, but young Aina steps forward with insight. She senses the ailment isn't natural, but caused by a curse poison, something created by combining toxic herbs with dark magic. The treatment requires innovation. Brenos prepares mistletoe using a method Diviciacus only theorized but never tested, fermenting it with specific fungi that neutralize supernatural toxins. The risk is significant. If wrong, the cure could become lethal. But the boy weakens hourly, and bold action is necessary. They perform the treatment at midnight, when cursed energies are most vulnerable. The mistletoe preparation is administered while Brenos chants counter-curse invocations, words he's never spoken as lead healer. Aina assists, her sensitivity allowing her to track the poison's movement and direct where to apply mistletoe poultices. The battle continues through the night. At times, the youth convulses so violently they must restrain him. The fever spikes dangerously, then suddenly breaks like a dam bursting. Black bile pours from his mouth, the cursed poison leaving his body. By dawn, the boy sleeps peacefully, his temperature normal, the ice in his extremities melted. The Nervi delegation, witnessing this healing, declares Brenos worthy of Diviciacus's mantle. But Brenos knows this is just the beginning. Each healing teaches something new, and mistletoe still guards countless secrets. He understands now why Diviciacus always remained humble despite his knowledge. The more one learns about healing, the more one realizes how much remains unknown. A traveling merchant named Lucian arrives at the grove with an extraordinary claim. While trading in distant Germania, he discovered mistletoe growing on a pine tree. something the Druids believed impossible, as they thought mistletoe only grew on deciduous trees. He brings a sample, preserved in salt and wine, along with stories of Germanic tribes using this pine mistletoe for entirely different purposes. Brenos examines the specimen with fascination. It's definitely mistletoe, but subtly different. The leaves darker, the berries larger, the stem woodier. When tested, its properties prove distinct from oak mistletoe. Where oak mistletoe energizes and heals, pine mistletoe calms and preserves, slowing bodily processes almost to stopping. The implications are staggering. Thoughtful. If mistletoe varies based on its host tree, how many varieties exist? What powers might mistletoe from ash, apple, or hawthorn possess? Lucian, sensing opportunity, proposes a partnership. He'll search for unusual mistletoe varieties during his travels, bringing them to the grove for study. In exchange, he wants exclusive rights to trade certain mistletoe preparations, making fortune while spreading healing knowledge. Brenos agrees, but with conditions. The merchant must swear oaths not to adulterate the medicines, to charge fair prices, and to report back on their effectiveness. Lucian accepts, understanding that breaking such oaths would invite both legal and spiritual consequences. This partnership marks a new era. Within a year, Lucian brings mistletoe from 7 different tree species, each with unique properties. Apple mistletoe proves excellent for fertility issues, ash mistletoe for bone healing, hawthorn mistletoe for heart ailments. The grove's knowledge expands exponentially, but challenges arise too. Some varieties prove dangerous. Yew mistletoe is so toxic that even handling it causes numbness. Others are so powerful they must be diluted beyond homeopathic levels. Young Aina catalogues each variety, her sensitivity allowing her to understand their properties quickly. She creates a new classification system, organizing mistletoe types by their energetic signatures rather than just their host trees. This becomes the foundation for a more sophisticated understanding of mistletoe medicine, moving beyond tradition into systematic exploration. A crisis strikes the region. A plague affecting only children, leaving them paralyzed but conscious, trapped in bodies that won't respond. The illness spreads through villages like wildfire, and desperate parents flood the grove seeking help. Standard mistletoe treatments fail. Even preparations that have cured paralysis before prove useless. Brenos faces his greatest challenge as chief healer. The disease is unlike anything in Druidic memory. Children lie still as stones, only their eyes moving, tears flowing as they remain imprisoned in motionless flesh. Parents weep, offering everything they own for a cure. In desperation, Brenos turns to experimental methods. He combines every variety of mistletoe they've collected, creating what he calls the universal elixir. But Aina stops him, sensing danger. The paralysis, she explains, isn't caused by disease, but by the children's spirits partially separating from their bodies, something triggered by a disturbance in the other world. The treatment requires not just physical medicine, but spiritual intervention. They must use mistletoe to strengthen the connection between spirit and flesh, drawing the children's consciousness fully back into their bodies. This demands a preparation never attempted. Mistletoe harvested during a lunar eclipse, when the veil between worlds is thinnest. Fortunately, such an eclipse approaches in 3 days. But 3 days might be too late for the weakest children. Brenos makes a difficult decision. They'll perform a forced crossing, temporarily sending healthy volunteers into the other world to guide the children's spirits back. The volunteers drink a dangerous dose of vision mistletoe, while the paralyzed children receive gentle doses to make their spirits visible to the crossers. The ritual is harrowing. Several volunteers nearly lose themselves in the other world's maze, but they succeed in finding the children's spirits, confused and lost, and guide them back like shepherds gathering scattered sheep. As each child's spirit returns, paralysis breaks dramatically, sudden gasping, crying, reaching for parents. The crisis passes, but leaves the Druids shaken. They've learned that some ailments originate beyond the physical realm, requiring treatments that risk the healer as much as the sick. Political realities shift as Romans establish permanent presence in the region. Rather than suppress the Druids, the new governor, influenced by Marcus's writings, proposes integration. He offers official recognition and protection if the Druids agree to treat Roman citizens and share certain medical knowledge. The Grove debates fiercely. Some see collaboration as betrayal, others as survival. Brenos takes a middle path. They'll share healing knowledge but keep sacred mysteries secret. They'll treat Romans, but maintain their primary commitment to Celtic peoples. A healing center is established at the Grove's edge, where Roman and Celtic medicine merge. Roman physicians bring anatomical knowledge and surgical techniques, while Druids contribute herbal wisdom and energy healing. Mistletoe becomes the bridge between traditions, respected by both sides for its undeniable effectiveness. The collaboration produces unexpected innovations. Roman glassmaking allows creation of sealed vessels for preserving mistletoe tinctures. Roman scales enable precise dosing. Roman record-keeping helps track treatment outcomes systematically. In return, Romans learn that healing involves more than fixing bodies. They observe how Druidic attention to spiritual and emotional factors improves outcomes. Some Roman physicians begin incorporating ritual and intention into their practice, finding it enhances their effectiveness. A young Roman physician named Claudius becomes particularly interested in mistletoe. Working with Ain, he documents the plant's effects, using Roman systematic observation while respecting its sacred nature. Together, they discover that mistletoe contains compounds that affect what Romans call humors and Druids call life force, possibly the same phenomenon described differently. The integration isn't without problems. Cultural misunderstandings arise. Some Romans want to mass-produce mistletoe medicines, not understanding that preparation rituals affect potency. Some Druids resent teaching occupiers, even benevolent ones. But gradually, a hybrid tradition emerges. Roman Celtic healing centers spread throughout Gaul, each maintaining a sacred oak with mistletoe, combining the best of both traditions. Initially skeptical, comes to see this as evolution rather than corruption. Mistletoe teaching its greatest lesson, that healing transcends tribal boundaries. As Brenos ages and Ain reaches her full power as a healer, they achieve the Grove's greatest innovation, the living pharmacopoeia. Rather than simply harvesting mistletoe, they discover how to cultivate it deliberately, encouraging it to grow on specific trees to produce desired medicinal properties. The technique comes from observing how birds spread mistletoe seeds. By feeding birds specific diets and directing where they perch, Druids can influence where and how mistletoe grows. More remarkably, by treating parent plants with certain preparations, they can enhance the medicinal properties of offspring mistletoe. They create what they call a healing forest. Dozens of trees, each bearing mistletoe cultivated for specific purposes. One oak produces mistletoe for fever, another for wounds, another for melancholy. The trees are arranged in sacred patterns, their energies interacting to create a living temple of healing. This innovation attracts attention from distant lands. Healers arrive from Hibernia, Caledonia, even from beyond the Roman Empire. The Grove becomes an international center of healing knowledge, though its Celtic heart remains strong. Ain, now recognized as the greatest mistletoe worker of her generation, makes an even more remarkable discovery. By grafting different mistletoe varieties onto a single host tree, she creates hybrid mistletoes with combined properties. A single plant might carry oak mistletoe's strength, apple mistletoe's fertility enhancement, and pine mistletoe's preservation powers. But the greatest achievement is the master plant, a mistletoe growing on the original ancient oak, fed with preparations of every healing ever performed in the grove, grafted with specimens from every variety discovered. This ultimate mistletoe is used only for the most desperate cases, its power so great that a single berry can shift someone from death's threshold back to life. The living pharmacopoeia ensures that even if the druids themselves disappear, the trees will remember. The healing forest becomes self-sustaining, birds spreading enhanced seeds, creating new groves that carry the accumulated wisdom forward. It's a legacy that transcends human lifetime, mistletoe teaching its final lesson, that true healing wisdom plants itself in the future. Years pass, and Brenos, now ancient himself, faces the same duty Diviciacus once performed, choosing and training his successor as knowledge keeper. Several candidates show promise, but tradition demands the trial of 3 moons, where aspirants must demonstrate not just memorization, but deep understanding of mistletoe's mysteries. The trial begins at summer solstice. Each candidate receives an unknown ailment brought by travelers from distant lands. They must diagnose using only observation and intuition, determine which mistletoe variety and preparation method to use, and perform the complete healing, while explaining every choice to assembled druids. Young Aidan, grandson of a farmer healed by Diviciacus decades ago, faces a woman whose skin changes color with her emotions, red with anger, blue with sadness, gray with fear. Standard treatments fail because they address symptoms, not cause. Through meditation with mistletoe smoke, he perceives her condition's true nature, her spirit fragmenting from trauma, each piece manifesting as a different color. His treatment combines mistletoe varieties representing unity: oak for strength, apple for wholeness, ash for connection. But uniquely, he has the patient participate actively, using art to express her fragments while taking the medicine. As she paints, the colors in her skin stabilize, eventually returning to normal hue. Morna, a young woman from the Northern Islands, treats a child who ages rapidly. Hair whitening, skin wrinkling, bones brittling, though only 7 summers old. She recognizes this as time sickness, caused by exposure to otherworld energies where time flows differently. Her cure uses pine mistletoe to slow bodily processes, combined with ritual that realigns the child's temporal rhythm with the mortal world. Both succeed, but the trial's final test surprises everyone. Successful, they must treat Brenos himself, who has deliberately induced a condition to test their abilities. Only those who recognize that sometimes the greatest healing is accepting natural transitions, offering comfort rather than cure, truly understand mistletoe's deepest teaching. The one who passes this test becomes the next knowledge keeper, ensuring the unbroken chain continues. The world changes around the grove. Roman influence grows stronger, and new religions arrive speaking of single gods and salvation through faith alone. Many Celtic traditions fade, but the grove adapts, understanding that healing transcends religious boundaries. Christian monks arrive, initially hostile to pagan practices, but when their prayers fail to halt a wasting disease in their monastery, desperation drives them to seek druidic help. Aine, now the grove's senior healer, receives them without judgment. She explains that mistletoe cares nothing for the names humans give to the divine. It heals through natural law, accessible to all who approach with respect and right intention. The treatment she provides comes with teaching. She shows the monks how mistletoe growing high in trees resembles their Christ, suspended between earth and heaven, dying each winter to resurrect in spring, offering healing through sacrifice. This perspective allows them to accept the medicine without feeling they betray their faith. The collaboration proves fruitful. Monks, with their discipline and literacy, become excellent students of herbal medicine. They preserve druidic knowledge in illuminated manuscripts, disguising pagan wisdom in Christian symbolism. Mistletoe becomes the golden bough of life, its 3 leaves representing their trinity, its white berries the purity of divine healing. But changes come with costs. Public druidic ceremonies end. The great seasonal gatherings cease. The grove itself is rededicated to Saint Bridget, though everyone knows she's the goddess Brigantia in new clothes. The ancient ways survive, but hidden, like mistletoe seeds in bird bellies, waiting for favorable conditions to sprout again. Some druids resist, fleeing to wild places where old ways persist. Others, like Ain, stay to ensure healing knowledge survives, even if its context changes. She trains monks and wise women equally, teaching them to see past surface differences to healing's universal principles. In the great tree of knowledge, many branches die, but the roots remain. Mistletoe, the plant that needs no soil, becomes the perfect symbol for wisdom that survives transplantation, that can grow in any culture that provides suitable support. As open druidic practice becomes dangerous, the mistletoe tradition goes underground. Anya, in her final years, establishes the hidden stream, a network of healers who preserve the knowledge while adapting to new realities. Village-wise women learn mistletoe preparations, disguised as simple folk remedies. Traveling merchants carry medicines and messages between scattered practitioners. Even some Roman physicians, converted to the deeper aspects of healing, protect and preserve the tradition. The knowledge fragments but survives. Each keeper holds pieces. One knows the harvesting ceremonies, another the preparation methods, a third the healing applications. Only when they gather secretly at seasonal intervals does the complete tradition reassemble, like mistletoe's scattered seeds growing into new plants. Young Bridget, Ainya's final student, exemplifies this new way. Publicly, she's a Christian holy woman tending the sacred flame at Kildare. Privately, she maintains an oak grove where mistletoe grows according to ancient cultivation methods. Her miracles of healing often involve mistletoe preparations, though witnesses speak only of prayer and blessing. The hidden stream develops new practices for dangerous times. They create coded texts where mistletoe lore hides in agricultural almanacs and prayer books. They establish recognition signs, a sprig of mistletoe worn subtly, specific phrases in conversation, patterns woven into cloth. When persecution intensifies, they develop the sanctuary network. Certain monasteries, led by sympathetic abbots, who understand healing transcends doctrine, provide refuge for druidic healers. In return, these healers share their knowledge, enriching monastic medicine. The tradition also spreads beyond Celtic lands. Traders carry mistletoe medicine to Frankish territories, Visigothic Spain, even to Byzantium. Each culture adapts the knowledge to their needs, creating local variations while preserving core wisdom. In Hibernia, relatively untouched by Roman influence, the tradition remains strongest. There, in hidden valleys and sacred groves, the full ceremonies continue. They become the tradition's heartland, from which knowledge will eventually flow back to lands where it was temporarily lost. Centuries pass. The grove where Diviciacus once taught stands empty, its stones scattered, its ancient oak finally fallen in a storm. But mistletoe persists, growing wild throughout the forest, carrying in its cells the memory of accumulated wisdom. Then, in a time when old knowledge is being rediscovered, a young woman named Morgana arrives at the ruins. She's a scholar studying ancient medicine, drawn by references to miraculous healings performed here. As she explores, she notices the unusual abundance of mistletoe, the way it seems to grow in deliberate patterns. Local legends speak of the grove's power, though details are forgotten. Old women in nearby villages still gather mistletoe at specific times, performing half-remembered rituals, achieving modest healings. Morgana realizes she's found something significant. Not just historical ruins, but living wisdom encoded in the landscape itself. She begins methodically studying the site. Using techniques both scientific and intuitive, she maps mistletoe distributions, analyzes soil where ancient preparations were made, even meditates in spots where she senses concentrated energy. Gradually, patterns emerge that match descriptions in manuscript fragments she's collected. Most remarkably, she discovers the master oak's stump, and growing from it, a young oak already bearing mistletoe of unusual potency. When she prepares medicine from this mistletoe, using reconstructed ancient methods, the results exceed anything in modern herbalism. The grove begins attracting others: herbalists, historians, spiritual seekers. Together, they piece together fragments of the old knowledge. Some comes from manuscripts, some from folk tradition. Some seems to arise spontaneously, as if the grove itself remembers and teaches those ready to learn. They don't seek to recreate the past exactly. The world has changed too much. Instead, they blend ancient wisdom with modern understanding, creating a new synthesis. Mistletoe's chemical compounds are analyzed and found remarkably complex, validating ancient claims. But they also discover that preparation methods and harvesting times significantly affect these compounds, confirming the old ways weren't mere superstition. In the grove reborn, as modern seekers blend ancient wisdom with contemporary knowledge, the eternal cycle completes itself. Mistletoe, the plant that needs no earth, continues teaching its timeless lessons about healing that transcends physical remedies, about wisdom that survives cultural changes, about the eternal connection between humanity and nature. The new practitioners discover what the ancient Druids always knew, that mistletoe's greatest medicine isn't in its berries or leaves, but in what it represents. Growing between earth and sky, dependent on other trees yet maintaining its own identity, thriving in winter when others sleep, it embodies the paradoxes of existence that true healing must embrace. They establish a new teaching center at the Grove, where people come to learn not just about mistletoe, but about holistic healing that addresses body, mind, and spirit. Ancient techniques are validated through modern research, while contemporary discoveries enhance traditional practices. The old language may be forgotten, but the essential knowledge persists. Young healers still climb sacred oaks to harvest mistletoe, though they might wear modern safety equipment. They still speak words of gratitude and intention, though in contemporary tongues. They still understand that the healer's consciousness affects the medicine's potency, though they might explain it through quantum physics rather than spiritual metaphor. As the sun sets on our story, it rises on countless others. In places around the world where mistletoe grows, people discover its healing properties anew. Each culture adds its understanding, its practices, its stories to the ever-growing tradition. The grove's influence spreads like seeds on wind, taking root wherever people remain open to nature's teaching. And in the heart of the restored grove, where the master oak's descendant now towers tall and strong, covered with thriving mistletoe, the eternal truth remains. Healing is an art that transcends time, a wisdom that survives all changes, a gift that passes from hand to hand, generation to generation, as long as humans seek to ease suffering and restore wholeness. The mistletoe watches all, growing silently between worlds, forever bridging what seems separate, forever teaching that true medicine heals not just the body, but the connections between all things. As our journey through the sacred groves draws to its close, let the ancient wisdom of the mistletoe settle gently into your consciousness. like evening mist descending through oak leaves. The stories we've shared tonight, of Diviciacus and his golden sickle, of young Brennus learning the sacred ways, of Aine with her gift of plant speaking. These are more than mere tales from a distant past. They are reminders that healing has always been humanity's greatest art, that nature holds medicines we're only beginning to understand, and that wisdom can survive even when civilizations rise and fall like seasons. Feel yourself drifting now, carried on the soft wings of sleep, as countless generations of healers once drifted into dreams beneath the same stars that shine above you tonight. The mistletoe continues its patient growth, somewhere in forests around the world, drawing life from ancient oaks, keeping its vigil between earth and sky. Perhaps tomorrow, should you chance upon mistletoe growing wild, you'll remember the Druids who saw divinity in its evergreen persistence. Perhaps you'll think of the healers who climbed great oaks at dawn, who understood that true medicine involves more than compounds and preparations. It requires reverence, intention, and the recognition that all life is interconnected, like mistletoe and oak, inseparable yet distinct. Let these thoughts carry you now into peaceful slumber, knowing that somewhere the ancient wisdom persists. In hidden groves and modern laboratories, in the careful hands of herbalists and the intuition of healers. Retry. This response paused because Claude reached its max length for a message. Hit continue to nudge Claude along. Continue. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.